Welcome back. Major rulings by the Supreme Court this week are set to impact hundreds of thousands of Americans. Justices wrapped up their term with pretty big decisions on what it means to be an American, whether states can ban transgender athletes from girls' sports, and more. Our legal expert, Whitney Traylor, is with us now. And Whitney, let's start with probably the most consequential decision was birthright citizenship, the administration looking to end it. Most legal scholars will tell you it wasn't a surprise that it went the way it went, but how did you feel about how it split?
Well, the split was interesting, and I'm with you. I wasn't necessarily surprised at the outcome because you can't override a constitutional amendment with an executive order, and attempting to do so, I think most legal scholars knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. But as you said, the split, because this court has been very split ideologically, 6-3 conservative to liberal. This split, though, wasn't the traditional 6-3. It still ended up being 6-3, but it was John Roberts wrote the opinion, joined by the 3 liberal justices, and Amy Coney Barrett joined it, and then Brett Kavanaugh agreed with the outcome, but not exactly everything in the opinion. So it was a weird mix of the justices, which some people would say good. I mean, we're in an era where the judiciary is looked upon as being partisan. And to me, that's highly problematic because that is the one branch of government that is the arbiter. That is the one who can make the decision and say this is legal or unlawful. And so for people to start politicizing the court is really problematic. And that this particular court has been pretty divided.
Yeah, I think that's a point well taken for sure. There's 2 other significant cases decided on earlier this week. So transgender athletes in women's sports, as well as campaign financing. Can you kind of break down both of those cases for our viewers and us?
Yeah, sure. And they're somewhat complicated, but the outcomes weren't necessarily complicated. So as it related to transgender athletes, there were a number of states in this case, or there were 2 cases that were consolidated. So they were looking at laws from West Virginia and Idaho that banned transgender athletes. And the question was, is that lawful under Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause? And the Supreme Court said, yes, states, you can ban transgender athletes from participating or transgender women from participating in girls and women's sports. So that was a significant ruling, one, giving the states the power to do that, but also allowing them to ban that because there's now about 25 states that have initiated these types of bans. And then on campaign finance, we've seen over the years the campaign finance rules getting more loose so that you can put more money into it. And this was consistent with that in this campaign finance because the RNC challenged these spending limits, and the court said that no, you can put in as much money as you want into these political committees, the RNC and DNC, and they can then give money to various campaigns. And so they really, in the court said these spending limits violate the First Amendment because they restrict political speech. So now there's a lot of people that are worried that you're going to have even more corruption and influence in our political game.
A theme for a lot of the younger candidates that have been winning across this country is that. So that's a discussion for another time.
Right. They all run they all run on taking money out of politics.
Yeah, I don't know how many people think that that's a good thing, but at any rate, is there anything, when you look at the term, the whole term, is there anything that stood out to you specifically that surprised you?
Well, I think there were a number of things. One, I think, is the use of the shadow docket, the emergency docket, how the Trump administration really used that somewhat effectively, and those cases kind of went under the radar. I think the influence of the Trump administration, and there were a lot of wins and a lot of losses. For example, we just had the birthright citizenship, which I would consider a loss for the administration. Then, of course, we had the tariffs, which was a loss for the administration. But then there were immigration rights, in which the administration won in terms of TPS, Haitians, and other things, the power to fire heads of independent agencies, which is an expansion of the executive power, because what we've seen in Trump 2.0 is this expansion of the executive branch, because we're supposed to have 3 co-equal branches of government for checks and balances, and what you're seeing now is the executive just really completely running over Congress, and that's not even a political commentary. That you can point to the legal outcomes. So I think that's also relevant. And then, of course, the court continuing to move to the right, which we weren't surprised with the nominations that President Trump was able to push through. We do have a more conservative court. So those are some outstanding themes, I think.
All right, and much more to come in the next term. We'll have more conversations about that. Whitney.
See you next year.
Always good to see you.
All right, thanks.